Good morning, guys, and welcome to the weekly webinar series. And I'm really happy to introduce Eric Dingler for today's guest. He was a guest on the previous podcast, and today's talk is all about web accessibility webinar. And what I'm really interested in is he's going to talk to us about the new ADA rules for websites, what every business and nonprofit needs to know. And the goal is to demystify ADA for the web, build awareness, and inspire action through self audit and remediation. And I'm really happy to have him on and to discuss these areas. Eric, let's start by exploring why there's a renewed focus on ADA and websites. What's changed recently that business and nonprofit leaders need to know about?
Sounds great, Chris. And by the way, let me just say it's fantastic to talk to you again. I always enjoy our chats here. So last year in April 2024, the Department of Justice in the USA, the DOJ, issued some updated regulations specifically around what's known as Title II in the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. And these Title II regulations make it very clear that any website of any nonprofit, of any government agency, of any private for profit business, any web content, not just website, but any web content that has any type of government money associated to the person that owns it. They could be getting it from a grant, they could be getting it from a contract. If they have any type of federal money coming to them, then the website has to be made fully accessible according to the ADA guidelines. Not only that, we've seen a very significant increase in businesses being sued under Title III of the Americans with Disabilities Act. In fact, in 2016, there were 200 lawsuits in the United States of businesses being sued under the Title II. And in 2023, the last time we have numbers, that had climbed to well over 3,000 lawsuits, and we know that it's just gone up since then. There's just a lot going on with this. There's with the new regulations and stuff. A lot of people are talking about it. I'm getting asked about it a lot. So we've just decided to put together this information webinar with you and help people understand this a little bit.
Yeah. And I know for a lot of us, the words ADA compliance and web accessibility can sound a little intimidating and even expensive. And a lot of business owners, they're just, they're trying to just make it. And this webinar is designed to do the opposite, to make things clearer, simpler, and more practical. So the next question I have for the audience is a lot of people think of ramps or elevators when they hear ADA. How does ADA apply to websites and digital experiences?
Yeah, great questions. So the heartbeat behind ADA is that all people have equal access to services. So if people use your website to learn about your business, to make appointments, to buy something, even to make a donation, if the general public leverages your website for your business, then you have an obligation to make sure that the content on your website is accessible to everyone. And so that's what there's these guidelines called WCAG. It's a universal set of standards that are applied to websites to help people have equal access to the content of your website. And so a lot of people use assistive technologies to access websites. In fact, about 15 to 20% of the population has some level of disability that requires them to use assistive technology to access websites. And so it's really important that your website doesn't have any barriers between the content, the forms, the buying, whatever it is you want your website to do for people. You want to remove barriers. And so that's the point of it.
Yeah. And then a follow-up question I have for you is there's a lot of noise out there right now around lawsuits, regulations, and we want to help the audience cut through that, learn why it matters, what's changed, and how to take meaningful next steps without needing a web developer or a legal team. We're trying to keep things non-technical, very down to earth. So nonprofits, small businesses, websites, just you're in the right place. Third question I have for you is, what are some of the most common website issues that cause problems but don't people don't even realize they're accessibility barriers?
Yeah, the biggest one is forms. A lot of forms on websites cause problems for accessibility technologies and tools. And one good way to check your website is to test your website is on your phone, access your website from your phone. But before you do that, go into your phone settings, and in the accessibility settings of your phone, turn on iPhone, it's called VoiceOver. On Android, it's called Talk to Me or something like that. Turn that on and then try to navigate your website with your eyes closed. And you will very quickly discover the barriers that some people face when it comes to your website. The other thing is, the thing about accessibility is it's really known as it's what's known as universal design. Curb cuts were put in sidewalks to help people in wheelchairs, but a lot of people benefit from those curb cuts. People, moms pushing baby strollers, delivery drivers with dollies, bicyclists. And so a website is generally designed by somebody sitting in the perfect office with a nice big monitor, no distractions. The website owner reviews the website that way, but then most people aren't accessing the website with that. They're outside on their mobile phone. If they're in the house, they may not be able to use their mouse to control it, or even a touchpad on a laptop. They may be using voice commands or the keyboard. Try to use your website without using a mouse or a touchpad. Just try to use the tab button and arrow and return it, and see if you can get into your website. When you do that, real quickly is going to let you know if there's any issues with the website or forms. If your buttons or links on your website just say click here, for example, or learn more, someone that's having the website read to them through adaptive technology, that's all they're going to hear. They're going to hear button, click here for what? We don't know. Or link, learn more. Learn more about what? Your links and buttons really need to be descriptive. So that's one thing you got to look at, that kind of stuff. If somebody gets a PDF document from you or your website, well, that PDF document needs to be able to be accessed with a screen reader. So you've got to go in and lay some technology, some code in there, if you will, that lets a screen reader read that to someone. The emails that you send, even social media posts. Now, it's really simple. Social media, when you go to post on social media, almost every platform now, when you upload an image, even on Instagram, LinkedIn, almost all of them, you can add what's known as alt text. That alt text, when somebody is using the social media and they can't see your pictures, their phone or their computer will read that alt text, and now they're able to engage with your content over all the people that aren't doing that. And you now suddenly become someone that's providing equal access through your social media. So those are just some of the main things that people tend to overlook when it comes to their web content.
Interesting. Even I'm learning something. It's quite interesting. The next question I have for you is, a lot of people assume accessibility is just for folks who are can't see or can't hear, but it actually affects more people than that, right?
Yeah, really good point. People with dyslexia, they will use a screen reader to have a website read to them. People with high challenges with ADHD, for example, will use software that lets them block out certain things so they're just able to read the text so they don't get distracted by things. There's also when Harvard recently, just during COVID, Harvard, for example, was sued and lost the lawsuit because they were putting all of their videos online for their students, but their deaf students couldn't access the content because there was no transcriptions, there was no captioning. And if you put video content out there, you've got to make sure it's got the captions on it, or take an audio transcript and provide the ability for someone to download that and open it, or open it right there on your website. But it can also extend to people with temporary disabilities. Think
Mhm.
about the busy parent that's at home and they're home by themselves and they got 3 kids with them and the kids are running around and yelling, but this parent also has a migraine headache. And so they've got to order something on a website, or they're trying to learn, they're still trying to help their kid with something, but they got to have the light turned way down low because the bright light really just, it's so much, it just intensifies the pain. And so if your website isn't set up with good contrast between the text and the background, that person is going to struggle. Maybe it's somebody with a broken arm and they're used to using a mouse, but now they can't. And so there's all kinds of temporary things. And yeah, it goes way beyond the blind individual, which is what most people think of. There's all kinds of disabilities. In fact, again, at any given time, 15 to 20% of the population of the United States has a permanent or temporary disability that needs to have some type of accommodation made for them to have equal access to your web content. That's a lot of
Mm.
people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in the so if someone wants to do a quick check of their own websites, no fancy tools, what are a few easy things they can try today?
Nice. Go to your website, use the tab button and see what happens. And when you
Yeah.
get to your website and you press tab, the very first thing that should happen is somewhere near the top of the website, 99.9% of the time, it's in the very top left, a button should pop up that says skip to content.
Hmm.
If that doesn't happen, right away, your website is out of standards. After you hit the tab button the second time, it should start going through your navigation. You should be able to navigate through every item in your menu, and a box known as a hover state should appear around it. So you can tell very easily where your mouse is on the screen. If you're on your computer, just zoom your browser into 200%. Did the layout of your website break? Did it adjust so it's responsive? So people that have to zoom in, I'm legally blind and
Mhm.
I read every website zoomed in, and there are plenty of websites I get to it and things overlap and are covered up because it wasn't designed for people with disabilities like mine that have to zoom in on the content. Turn off the images. In most browsers, you can turn off images and reload your website and look and see if you have and a lot of people do this not just if they have a disability, but a lot of people have these images turned off if they have slow internet. And so there are a lot of people accessing your website that have images turned off. And when that happens, does alternative text show up where the image should be that replaces the story the image told? And that's what alternative text does. And this is why you never want to send an email where that is just a picture in your email. Like I see a lot of brands, they'll have a flyer created for an upcoming sale or something, and they use that on their social media, but then they take that and they put it in the email and they send the email out. If somebody has images turned off, that doesn't come through. If there's no alt text, I have no idea what your email is about. So those are things. Look through your website and look at the links. Do the links on your website just say click here, learn more, next? If they're just things like that with no description whatsoever, you're definitely out of standards with that. And then the last thing is very easy to check is, does your website have a website accessibility statement? Every website should have a website accessibility statement. You should have a link to it from your footer. It's just people with a disability that is struggling, and people with disabilities know to look for these. If they're having issues with accessing something on your website, they can scroll down to that, open it up, and they'll see who to contact, what they should do. And so you should have a website accessibility statement on your website. So those are just some very non-technical, very super easy things people could check.
Interesting. The next question I have for you is, let's talk benefits. What kind of upside is there
Mhm.
for businesses and nonprofits that prioritize accessibility?
Yeah, going back to what I talked about a little bit ago with the universal design of curb cutouts. Curb cutouts make a lot of people's lives easier. And so accessibility actually does several additional things that help businesses and nonprofits out a lot. It improves SEO. So when you put those alt tag or that alt text on all of your images, search engines can read all of that. They look for that information to help them have even a deeper understanding of your website. So if you put that in there correctly, you're going to really improve your SEO. When you design a website that is clear of distractions and you really think through, is every step really clear? Is my call to action button easy to see? Does it stand out? Is it easy to get to on a phone? When you do that from the perspective of, because I want to make this easy for people with disabilities to access, you're making that so much easier for everybody to access. Without a doubt, we always see conversions increase significantly on websites that are designed with a high focus of accessibility. So you're going to get more conversions, which for a lot of businesses means more sales, more revenue. And come on, what business owner, what of us doesn't like that? So that's great. You're going to get a broader appeal, broader audience. Again, 15 to 20% of people with disabilities, if you don't have barriers, boom, you're a lot. And in the United States, that depends on what you look at, but about 10% on average, the studies show, 10% of men have red-green color blindness. And so many websites, though, will say, click on the red button below. Or an error will come up and it'll say, fix on a form, fix the forms, fix the boxes in red or something like that. If you're red-green colorblind, you just completely put a barrier in front of that person. It's why in the United States, that green traffic lights, they're starting to put some blue in there. So if you, next time you're out and about, just look at the new traffic lights, and you'll notice that the green looks a little blue-green. They've done that because of so many men that are red-green colorblind. Doing these things on your website, you're going to reach more people because 15 to 20% of people have some type of disability. It's going to make your brand look good. You're going to have a really strong brand reputation for this. People in certain accessibility communities, like, they talk, like, deaf people let other deaf people know when a website is really accessible to them. Same thing with people with vision impairments. And so it's going to really help you. And then the last thing is, it's going to lower your legal risk. If you don't take this seriously, you really have a significant target on your business for a potential lawsuit. And if you are one of those businesses or nonprofit that's receiving money from the government through a grant or contract to provide a service, you will actually no longer be eligible for that money. So if you're I talked to one of our clients earlier today, they get a grant through the Ohio Department of Transportation to help provide transportation for people in wheelchairs to doctor's appointments. And they called us because they were filling in their annual paperwork for the Ohio Department of Transportation. And she said, for the very first time, and she goes, Eric, I've been doing this for years and years. For the very first time, they asked for a copy of our certificate showing that our website is compliant. And we have to show this on our application to get our grant money. And we're talking significant amount of money. So those are some of the benefits. Secure your funding, get rid of the risk exposure, improve your SEO, improve conversion and sales. It's just upside all across the board.
So I know we have a couple more minutes remaining, and what's the downside risk? Someone, they're listening to this and they refuse to ignore or they refuse to follow. What kind of risks are they opening themselves up to?
Yeah, the opposite of all those other things. You run a chance of being sued. Just Google sometime website accessibility lawsuits. They're law firms that have people that they just go out and look for companies that are violating this, and they sue the company on behalf of a couple of clients. There's in New York in the last couple of years, Just Google New York art gallery disability lawsuits, and you're going to see that there was a law firm going out on behalf of a couple of people with disabilities, and they were suing art gallery after art gallery in New York City. And I'm
Mm.
telling you, once they're done with that industry, they're going to start on another. So it's just a matter of time. And people share things now. If somebody comes to your website and they run into a barrier, they may put that on social media, and now your brand is tarnished. But you're just losing out on business. No, I doubt many people that are listening are going, really need any more business. So a significant threat right there.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed this, and final key takeaways for this, and how can people find you and connect with you? Because I know you help business owners with SEO, local SEO, improve their website SEO, and how can they work with you?
What I'd love to do is offer people that are watching this and got to this point access to a new tool. So we've created a new and improved self assessment that people can just go through and answer the questions about their website. Each question that needs it has a video that they can watch to walk them through how to do that part of the assessment. It takes most people 5 to 7 minutes to complete it. And at the end, you're going to get a scorecard. And to get this, just go to accessscorecard.com. A lot of S's in the middle when you type all that out. So accessscorecard.com. And right away, you're going, and it's going to have you answer some questions about your website and a few questions about your business, because we've seen these predatory law firms. One of the things we know they do is they create a database of companies that do over a certain amount in revenue or that spend so much money per month on advertising. Because the way they look at it, if you can spend more than $2,000 a month on advertising, you have enough revenue to sue. And so the assessment, the Access Scorecard asks you a couple questions like that to give you a risk exposure score. And it's going to show you your results right at the end, and it's going to let you know what risk you've got. And if you answer no, that your website doesn't have a website accessibility statement, the system is just immediately going to email you a link to a Google document that you can copy, edit, and have added to your website. And so I would just love to invite people to go to accessscorecard.com.
Excellent. We really enjoyed talking with you, and thanks so much for this webinar. And the key takeaway is digital accessibility doesn't have to be overwhelming, but ignoring it is no longer an option. And check out the self assessment tool. And thanks so much for giving this great webinar.
I hope it helps people.